Yeah. Welcome everyone to this bloat, and as usual, before we start, we should have a few moments of silence to clear our minds, open our hearts, and discard preoccupations and feelings that we don't need for this evening's business. After the few moments of silence, I shall say a few words in Old Norse and English. I shall light a candle and we can begin. The words will be said towards the north, which I have the compass as normal. So let's try and just as it were clean our glasses spiritually and focus ourselves. Jag speak alla helga kindir, mer jag minni, morgu hendallar, helt kvöld och heli kvöld sinir, hel natt och neft, och reisum augum nittit och sinig, och gevet sittjundum sigur, alle eisig, alle ausinir helsjog in fonit of fold. Maulog man vis gevet ook meigen tweem, I'd like to send a middle of them. Brande of brandy brennus brunnen air, funny kwekest of fundamat of mani better of molecule until dalska of dull. Hail evening and the sons of evening, hail night and her daughter, with unangry eyes look down upon us and grant the sitting victory. Hail the gods, hail the goddesses, hail the bountiful earth. Words and wisdom grant us and heed us hands while we live. Flame is quickened by flame. A man from another man may become wiser, but from conceit may remain ignorant. Truth, like the sky, is above and beyond us all. Gods of our peoples and lands, may we spend this time together in friendship with you and with each other, and use it to the common good, with profit and with pleasure. Hail, Odin. Good. Now, I've sent out a notice that has some information about Maxim, and I'm sure most of you will have read it. It's a great pleasure to have a man who has such a wide range of interests, and he is the lyricist for the band PARZIVAL, which I hadn't heard of before, but have really enjoyed listening to the music. So without further ado, I shall let Maxim speak. One thing I should say, I'm going into hospital on Friday, and there may be a knock on the door for a COVID swab, so that will only take a few seconds. So with that proviso, please, Maxim, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I haven't really prepared any big speech. I thought of a topic to start with. Let's start on the notion of traditionalism and fallen modernity and whatever René Guénon has taught us. It is said that we live in dark ages, fallen times, and the golden age was sometime yesterday, and we are inevitably reaching the edge of abyss. I think it is not really the case, because something like this has already happened, and a long time ago. As you all know, the Indo-European mythology, meaning both Greek, Norse, Roman, and so on, Slavic, they all speak of two generations of gods. I will use the Indic terms Devas and Asuras, which correspond to Devas correspond to Titans and Vanir in Greek and Norse mythology, and Asuras correspond to Iranian Ahuras, Greek Olympian gods, and Aesir in Norse mythology. When I take a look at Zoroastrianism, the religion that turned the whole mythology upside down, they demonized the Devas and they worship the Asuras, the normally earthly spirits, which are seen as diabolic creatures in Vedas and in Indian culture. I would not go as far as say that the demonic Asuras are Norse Aesir, but the linguistic evidence is there. It's the same root. So if you are a bit familiar with the Zoroastrian myth and Zoroastrian religion, the name of the gods themselves, they are logical constructs. Let's Ahura Mazda, the divine lord, the divine supreme being. Angra Mainyu, the wicked mind. I will take a look. The other one is Ameshas Pentas, the immortal divine. Well, if you really try to translate it all into French, it would correspond pretty much to the creations of cult of reason imposed on France by Reign of Terror, Max Robespierre, Danton, and so on. Cult of reason existed, I think, only for a couple of years before the revolutionaries were killed by the following revolutionaries. But if you can follow my analogy, at the time of Zarathustra, the names of the ancient gods were already forgotten. Nobody could understand what the theonyms meant. And the Zarathustra's revolution, spiritual revolution, was to demonize the old gods, the gods of the former generation, and to promote the gods of the newer generation, whose names were made up by him, and they were all understood, and they were all clear to people. So as I see it, it is a kind of a thing that René Guénon would call counter initiation or anti-tradition and so on. But years went by and it became a good old ancient tradition. And as time goes by, this is the natural flow of time, that one generation denounces the former generation with its religion, culture, beliefs, and it imposes something new, only to suffer the same fate by the following generation. So what I mean is that tradition never really goes anywhere. I think it's the natural cycle of tradition's existence, that it goes like in zigzags. It falls and it rises again. It changes faces, it changes names, but the principle stays the same. I don't know if it was too sporadic. You already have some questions, some comments.
Yes. Yes. Is that Terry? Can you mute yourself, Terry, please? Oh,
I don't understand if it's the TV in the background or the person speaking.
Mute. Well, so I was just attending to a few things to make sure some people got here. Does anyone have any questions about that? The idea of tradition, and if not, maybe you could talk, say something. Oh, Michael, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, unmute, please, Michael.
Okay. My first question I have is if these gods, the Iranian gods, were creations of reason and made up names, how do you explain a figure like Attar, the fire in Zoroastrianism?
Well, of course, not all of them were like the logical constructs. The divine fire, the name Attar, is actually, I think it's the original Indo-European name for fire. Agni and like Latin ignis, it's an epithet that came later. So ether is the real thing.
It's a mixture.
It's a kind of a mixture, but ether, it was not, it was personalized, but not in the way that other gods were. Not in the way that Ahura Mazda, Angra Mainyu, and Spenta, the Holy Spirit, I don't remember the exact name.
What about Helma, the equivalent of Soma? Was another one that
Soma comes from the ancient Vedic religion that was shared both by Indians and Iranians. I think the roots go deep into the Indo-European community. It's a kind of holy spiritual drink with narcotic effects. It's still disputed what the mixture was made of. Like I think the mainstream said like it was like 3 different herbs, like cannabis, agaric mushrooms, I think some people say, and opium.
Maxim, do you think you could do a very brief sketch of someone who had no idea of the idea of proto-Indo-European religion, to give them some sense of what we are able to think is likely to be our kind of common origins in that respect? That I think would be quite a useful thing, if that's possible.
Yes, the main deities of proto-Indo-European religion are reconstructed pretty well. It's first of all, it's the Heavenly Father, which in Vedic tradition is called Diaus Pitar, Zeus Pater in Greek, and Ius Pater, which was later distorted to Jupiter in Roman tradition. The second, like most prominent deity was the personified dawn, Ushas, Eos, and Aurora in Latin. I think there are like 5, 6 different gods, which are found in the most of Indo-European dialects. It's Germanic, Italic, Celtic, Slavic, Baltic, Indo-Iranian, and so on. So I would say that Greek mythology pretty much corresponds with what we know about Proto-Indo-European religion.
Adam, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yes, I wonder if you could shed some light on this for me. I don't know much about Zoroastrianism, but I've met quite a few Parsi, who I believe is a modern term for Zoroastrians now. How close is their way of worship, their interpretation of their gods and spirituality to when Zoroastrianism was founded?
You know, I would not claim 100% because it was not meant to be a lecture on Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism was just used as an example that a kind of anti-tradition happened already a long time ago. I would not say of myself that I know so much about Parsis and classical Zoroastrianism to claim for 100% sure that they are this and that. But I think they try to be as Puritan as possible. So, well, the problem with Puritanism, if you take Anglo-Saxon Puritanism or Wahhabism in Islam, it's already we want to go back to the roots, but by cleaning all the filth on our way, and I think by cleaning all the filth, we clean the essence of what really constitutes the religion in question. That's the problem with any Puritan sects in any religion. They think they go back to the roots, but indeed they cut the roots loose, and they leave the empty space.
That's a really interesting perspective. So, in other words, the non-revealed religions, non-religions of the book, so to speak, are very much organic religions. They are what develop in time. They're influenced by whatever cultures that they go through. Yeah, I can really relate to that. Thank you.
One of our participants isn't able to speak. But he asks a question, gives good wishes from, this is Federico Pizziello. I think you perhaps know him, and he gives good wishes from Elenia Olivero.
I know her.
Good, yeah. He asks, can you say something about the relationship between the Vanir group of deities and the Jotun, the giants?
Recently, I sent to Elenia my reconstruction of a theonym that I think that goes longer back than the Diaus Pitar deity. We know from heroic epic poetry of Homer times that the theonym Zeus was used like in everyday life by normal people, but in epic poetry they use the theonym Zan. Official scholars think that it's only the accusative case of Zeus, but I think it's completely other theonym. I reconstructed as Dian, and I think it's so ancient that it's found like everywhere, like in Tian Shan, in Chinese, heavenly mountains, Arabic jinn, the evil spirit living in the bottle, the genie. In our Indo-European dialects, it's first of all Indra, it's Jotun. I haven't found the cognates in Celtic and not in Slavic. In Armenian, there was a god that called Tyr. It could be the cognate. Titan, the Greek word, I think it was a borrowing from Anatolian languages, also meant heavenly god. So we have a theonym that meant heavenly spirit, and and I think it's millennia older than the Heavenly Father theonym, than Zeus Pitar. So such theonyms as Norse Jotun and Vedic Indra, I think it's the original supreme being, which later was exchanged with another name.
That's a very it's a very interesting thing. Not heard of that at all. But I'll let AJ come in a sec. Just wanted to say that I mean, we have a similar situation as we have with the Asuras and Devas, where an original sort of divine group has become demonic, you know, obviously
Yes.
with the Jotuns. So that's
Yeah.
another instance
That's
of
exactly that.
which is
And
fascinating.
by naive etymology, already in ancient times, Jotuns were perceived as gluttons, as eaters, and that is actually the official etymology for the word. But
Yeah.
I take it as a folk etymology. It's not the original one. What is very, very interesting exactly about Jotun and Indra, they both lost the initial D in their names. It was supposed to be Dindra and Jotun, but I think it was a natural case of falling of the initial consonant in front of E vowel. I made it in some other instances, in some other words.
AJ, please go ahead.
No, I was just trying to get a word in about Zoroastrianism. I'm not an expert either. However, I pasted on the chat box the name of a very good book I read years ago about Zoroastrianism, Cosmos, Chaos, and the World to Come, by Norman Cohen, who's a religious historian. And he makes some very, very interesting claims regarding the origins of Zoroastrianism. For one, he says that the idea of a Messiah, the idea of a judgment day, and many, many other concepts that we believe, well, I used to believe, were native to the Judeo-Christian tradition, actually originated with Zoroastrianism.
Yes.
And that very much, as Maxim pointed out, the Zoroastrian deities and the Zoroastrian movement in its entirety was an antagonistic reaction to the Hindu pantheon. They rejected them, they made them demons, right? And it was a total rejection of the of what went previously. So it's a very good book. I don't remember all the details and I'm no expert on it, but I would strongly recommend that. It's very readable for someone who is not a historian.
Thank you. If you've got no Adam has his hand up. Please go ahead, Adam.
First, thank you, AJ, for that. That's really good, good information. I'll pursue that. Can I ask a question about? I'm very interested in the Lithuanian gods and goddesses and pantheons. How much influence do the ancient Vedic pantheon have on Baltic Lithuanian pantheon?
I wouldn't say impact. I would say that they share common theonyms, common basics of the pagan religion, the Vedic religion. Like Ushas is called Aushra in Lithuanian, so it's very close, and the goddess occupies the same high place as it does in Vedas. Many parallels. Well, to speak of the language itself, Lithuanian and Sanskrit, they're like twin brothers. They share a lot of in case systems, in tense systems, even in some phonetic changes. So it's very fair to say that once, like long time ago, well, the mainstream says it was like a region from eastern Ukraine up to Caucasian mountains and to the east almost to the Ural mountains. Somewhere there in this triangle between Black Sea and Caspian Sea, the Indo-Europeans originated. So it's possible that already there we have like the basics of Proto-Indo-European religion that were later shared both by Indo-Iranians that came that went southwards and the Balts that went northwards from there.
It's a remarkable remarkably close relationship, isn't it? And it maybe indicates that at some point in the past that there was a great deal of similarity across other parts of Europe as well with this common heritage. probably the main reason I'm very pleased to have you as a guest is as someone who regularly conducts bloats, acts of worship, and is trying to find material, trying to structure liturgies. What do you think, what has been discovered about Proto-Indo-European religion? How do you think that can best inform people today who are trying to worship the divine in this whole area of the kind of Indo-European dispensation?
I had this one experience with Vladimir Wiedemann once he visited Estonia, and he asked me to compose a prayer in Proto-Indo-European. Well, I said that I could compose it in a language similar to Proto-Indo-European. It was my own creation. Sorry, that was my child. It was a constructed language, like some kind of mix between Proto-Slavic and Sanskrit. To be honest, I took the very famous sentence by Marcus Aurelius, which is used by Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh, really? What is that? Tell me. I've not actually.
You don't. I don't know exactly the word, but they are really powerful words. I should have had it ready by me. I could read it up to you. Dear God, let me accept the changes I cannot make. Give me the wisdom to.
Give me the strength to change those things which I can change, and the idea, the judgment to see between them. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So this text I translated into this constructed quasi Proto-Indo-European language, and we made a blot by the sacred stone. It's called Bloodstone. It's near Tallinn, and it was interesting.
Oh, that is a good thing. I mean, one thing I have been trying to do is to look at the myths of the Edic revelation from the point of view of these common themes that like the slaying of the dragon, the idea of the earth as a body, the dismemberment of Ymir. Things like that maybe have got more important. For instance, Lord Tyr, I mean, yeah, maybe we should give more honor to him. And I think in the mythology that has come down, he is quite a minor figure, whereas really he should be honored more. Really,
who? Sorry,
Tyr.
Tyr.
Tyr, yes. I think
Tyr actually it's not recognized at once, but phonetically it corresponds exactly to Deus, to Zeus. So it actually means the God, the divine, the Heavenly Father, which in Germanic mythology gave up the high place and became one of the secondary gods.
Yes. Now, is Travis still? Yes, it's Travis. You have a question, please.
Maxim, I spent a summer on Muhu Island, so that's Estonian religion practice there. You were in Tallinn. Can you contextualize Musak practice and other Estonian natural religion in terms of the discussion?
Well, you know, I'm not such a big practitioner of. I am really like a cabinet scholar, which only like finds his peace in books, not in the nature, unfortunately. Well, the last thing I did it was with Vladimir Wiedemann, who visited Estonia. It was like the only activity, like actual activity that I had. I wish I had contacts to some pagan groups here in Estonia, to know the people, to see what they're like. But I do not have them at the moment.
You should go to Muhu Island. You'll find people there.
Okay.
Vladimir, could you say something about the organization you spoke of that was looking at the common ground between sort of Slavs, Balts, and Scandinavians, NORDSOLEN, I think
Yes.
it was. Yes, well, yeah, please say something about that.
I've read a comment under your advertisement of today's Moot, and a person said, "What's it's all about? There are no commonalities in."
Yes, that was Gregory Lord of Frost, that may well be known to some of us here. Yes, indeed. So,
Yeah.
what would you say if he were here?
Well, I would say that it's completely not true, because already at that time, the known world was a kind of globalized, and globalized, of course, by what? By trade. What we know, the trade route from Vikings to Greece is actually a part of the greater route from Ireland to India. Such a great distance covered by our ancestors, the Indo-European forefathers that live at the moment from India to Iceland and Ireland, already at that time, I think it's already from antiquity and maybe even earlier. Especially this piece of this way from Scandinavia through the Slavic rivers down to the Black Sea and down to the Greeks. They were in contact constantly. Not to say about the Norman theory about the Slav state, the first state that the Slavic people had, the Kiev Rus. It's the mainstream idea that some noble Vikings came down to Dnieper and established a settlement, which were then known as Kiev, and it was the first state of the Slavs, which grew to a smaller empire. Even before that, well, come on, like Slavic, Baltic, and Norse religion, they are basically the same. All the same gods, maybe with somewhat different names, but the principle is the same. So yeah, like what can I say? Like today's European Union with human rights and democracy and blah blah blah. That cultural background in form of religion and in form of I don't know, weapons, like social culture, already was there at that time. Yes, and to speak a little bit about NORDSOLEN. It was, I think it was 15 years ago that I started this organization. I have to admit I was under big influence of Alexander Dugin, if you know the name. But in the end, Dugin was like a trampoline for me to learn something more. It's something deeper than Dugin is in reality. So I thought that I knew the truth and the masses deserved to know it, and I was like ardent with enlightenment. So I founded my own evening school with a series of lectures. Some people were there, some some people came, some people went, but in the end, as I wrote to you afterwards, it all came down to, well, pure entertainment for people who didn't want to deepen more into the things that I was trying to tell them. Unfortunately, that's the case with today's neo-pagans and folkish organization. It's for many people that do not seek enlightenment and connection to the ancestry. It's all the kind of entertainment for them. Only a thing to meet up, to get drunk, to meet some people, to blah blah blah, and that's it. I can't blame them. It's a very human thing. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is on the intellectual level that I would love to have as a partner of a conversation.
Yes, Do you think, as it sort of seems to me, that the artifacts we have from the Danish kind of sun culture that one finds in the museum, that is one of the kind of most powerful
Exactly, yes.
connections we have, really.
It's an unofficial symbol of Indo-European studies.
Yes, yes.
Indo-European reconstruction. It's a kind of symbol, like Little Mermaid is a symbol of Copenhagen.
Yes, yes. Yeah, seeing the objects in the museum, I did find it very moving, and it's such a positive kind of energy that seems to come from those, even though they're in bits. There's still something there, and it's a wonderful thing. And the idea of the sun as an image of deity is just particularly strong in Northern Europe, where we value the sun maybe more because it's not here all the time. So I think that is a very good thing. One thing I'd like to ask: how do you place the cultural artifacts of those cultures that are officially not Indo-European, such as the Kalevala from Finnish, and maybe some of the things from your own country, Estonia? I mean, because of the commonalities of geography, of culture, maybe genetics to some extent, are they stronger than the affiliation through language descent? How do you see that?
I have to remark, Estonia is not my home country. I come from Ukraine.
Sorry, I'm confused. Sorry, forgive me.
I have lived almost all my life in Denmark, and only recently I moved to Estonia because of my wife, who is from here. At the moment, I strongly support the hypothesis of so-called Indo-Uralic people. I think that Indo-Europeans and Proto-Uralic people, which Estonians, Finns, and many smaller minorities of people in Russia, they all constituted like a proto ethnos. I think we're talking about Swiderian culture. It's 8,000 years BC, somewhere in eastern Poland and western Ukraine, right at the edge of the Great Glacier, which at that time covered almost all the Europe and Scandinavia as well. What was particular about that culture, it was in a kind of symbiosis with deers, reindeers, exactly those deers which Santa rides on. It was always thought that it was only an object of hunting, like buffaloes in North America for native Indians. But I think even with native Indians, it's not so true. They never only hunted them. Of course, they hunted them for meat, but I think that it was maybe it was not that domestication that we know, but it was already like some basics of domestication, some connection between people and animals. Before I knew about these new findings that actually proved that some of the deers were domesticated by those people already 10,000 years ago. I discovered it in the Proto-Indo-European roots, which actually almost the same everywhere in every Indo-European dialects. Not in English, because deer it meant like any creature, and then like the general creature was transposed to a specific creature, the deer. It's in Russian it's olень. Elaphos in Greek. I will not cite. I can't remember them all. I interpreted as a composite Elia Anos, home or familiar spirit or soul. So they call the deer a familiar spirit, meaning that exactly that animal was something else than bears, wolves, and all the wildlife out there. And later I discovered that the deer actually has the same worshipped place also in ancient Uralic and Finno-Ugric religions. So what I think about Finland, Estonian heritage, I think it's very close to Indo-European. On some level, we are very close cousins, and the same are the religious beliefs.
Yes, I think so. If no one else has got any questions, the next bloke I'm doing will be focusing on. Michael, yes, please go ahead, sir.
All right. I just want to say, I mean, I like what you've been saying, and my own studies have been Indo-European studies. I mean, I've written a book on it as well.
You've written?
Yes, it's called The Divine versus the Assyrian, and an interpretation of Indo-European myth and cult. And we probably agree with the focus, your position on folkism and so forth. Probably where I would most differ from your interpretation is I see the idea of the succession of kingship, basically something that Hesiod was influenced by the mythologies of the Levant. And so that's why you have Uranus and then Cronus and then Zeus among the Greeks. And I think that's that's a later development. I mean, I agree with you on when you say that Lithuanians were not influenced by the Vedics or the Sanskrit, that they're all daughter cultures from a proto-culture. They pick up various indigenous things wherever they end up settling. They have their own interpretations and so forth. But the thing that always triggered the whole studies with me was exactly Zarathustra's inversion of basically the Hindu understanding of the divine versus the Assyrian, and where he takes the Asuras and elevates them into Ahura Mazda and so forth. Indra and all the rest become the Devas, the demons. And so I always questioned, why did that happen, and what are the ramifications from that? And I wonder about when you're talking about the heavenly spirit being older than the Zeus father. Well, Zeus, Deus, whatever, he's light, and the light originally was born from the earth. It's really her firstborn, and then together they become the parents of everything. And when you say heavenly spirit, it sounds almost, to me, sounds Abrahamic. It's again making it something transcendental, and I think that's the beauty of our Indo-European heritages, is that we understood earth and nature were sacred, and they weren't something created by some transcendent external spirit. If there is a transcendental spirit, it's born from the earth, but it didn't create the earth. So that's kind of my position, but probably we have a lot in common. I'm guessing.
I would like to comment on your comment. I chose the word spirit only to make it more understandable, because the more precise translation is breath, the heavenly breath, and breath, which is the base of anima and animus in Latin. It's both spirit, soul, God, everything which has the thin energy, which and the energy which transcends everything in the universe and connects everything in the universe. This is the cosmic breath. which is both in a person, individual person, and in a god, in anything which is alive.
All right, I could, I'll have to think about that. The breath also probably is possibly the root etymology behind Asura, Ahura also. And so that's why I become skeptical of breath. Of course is important and we can't live without it. But at the same time,
it's as a symbol of energy, which makes us alive.
All right, but again, it's trying to find a term or an idea or a symbol to represent something that is not the material. And the irony is, of course, we use the word spirit. Spirit is, again, physicality. We use it as a metaphor for something that's supposed to be not physicality.
Exactly.
And so that's where I get
it's the boundaries of language, unfortunately.
All right, sure.
One more thing. What was I going to say? Yes, why exactly heaven, air, breath, and stuff like that? I think at Bronze Age, in the Neolith, it was the time when the human being already conquered all the elements of fire, water, earth, and only air, only the wind was totally unknown, totally unpredictable to them. So it was natural that the wind and the air and heaven, which created the wind, they were automatically thought of as divine space, divine entity. Well, still today with our forecast, it's not entirely 100% accurate. We still worship the winds as if they were all some unknown powers that governed our weather. So it's very much connected to the nature of air and wind, soul, right. Spirit.
There's a duality there, of course, and if you try to figure out what the Indo-Europeans use as their chief metaphors for the demonic, for the Assyrian, the three that most come to mind are the volcano, and the drought, and then the violent storm. So there's your wind there. But there's a difference between Indra, for instance, he's divine, he's a deity. He's not an Asura.
His enemy is Vritra, the blocker of the rivers,
right?
Which brings the drought.
So what Indra and Zeus and Jupiter and so forth have in common is that they are the weather god, the Hittite weather god. If they come with the storm, they bring rain, whereas the Assyrian storm and wind brings only destruction. And so there's a difference. And I really find that with Indra, he's much closer to the divine breeze than he is to the storm. So there's a lot of nuance and finesse.
Exactly, of course. And of course, if we take Indian culture compared to Greek, to Germanic, of course, sometimes nuances are so big that they shadow the principle. And, exactly. and then we have a kind of upside down situation. That sometimes, a theonym which is totally incomprehensible for a practitioner, it brings some other attributes, and suddenly it becomes a totally different god, like Apollo, for example. In ancient Greece, Apollo was first one god, and then it became something else. The same in Roman tradition with Mars. Mars was a peaceful, fertile land god, and suddenly it became a bloodthirsty god of war. Only because that they could not interpret the theonyms correctly, and some cults became more successful, maybe economically, maybe prestige, and voila, you have a god which holds his hand above the army and which goes to war and has success in it.
Let me just ask you, what is your reaction to Dumazil?
Yeah, good question.
I like, well, of course, I am a romantic as well, as Dumezil is.
Michael, perhaps you can say, for those not familiar with the matter,
yeah, Dumezil was a French, anthropologist? I'm not sure, but he's considered the regenerator of Indo-European studies. But he came up with a whole kind of tripartite division of society, and that can be questioned. He put
Exactly.
the rulers and Indra and Zeus and Jupiter and so forth into the second category of warriors and rulers, and he exalts the priests, the Brahmins, into first place. Of course, in India, that they are in first place, but that's because they were the ones who could write, and they wrote the books, and of course they wrote themselves into first place. So I think if you really look at Proto-Indo-European society and culture, it's much more kind of balancedly divided between two groups, between the agriculturists and the protectors and hunters.
Exactly.
Hunters and protectors on one side and the agriculturists on the other. And Dumezil brings in this other kind of structured society, which I think is a later development.
My own approach to this, I also think that it was like a duality. We had like a kind of racketeers, like bandits on the horses in the steppes, which protected and robbed and plundered the settlements in the forests. And it was this dualism that existed like for many centuries.
Yes.
I think the idea of Trinity is something that comes from the religion, from spirituality. The trinitarity of universe of, maybe it was it were the idealists, like the Marxists of those times, that tried to impose the ideology onto the real society. And those were the Aryans that came to India and imposed that that idealistic ideology upon the locals in India. Maybe it was the case.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, all right. So there's the. I understand what you're saying about the Trinity. I think, in a sense, it's a five-fold thing. Five was originally a word for totality. So because of the five fingers in the hand, so they have the same word for hand and for totality, and the number five. And in a sense, when you look at the Trinity type concept, it's usually female. That's why most of your triads are female triads. The male thing is a duality. You have the divine twins, and with the female, she's caught between the two. She's usually the consort of the dominant one, but she's usually more in love with the other one. And that's the one who ends up being killed and becomes then the lord of the other world and so forth. But so together you have this kind of fivefold structure, the three being the female and then the two male dualities. And I don't know if that female triad thing works into your Trinity and the spirit thing or not, but that's...
You know, if we speak now about numbers as something symbolical to Indo-Europeans, I would say it is 3 and 4, because 3 plus 4 is 7, 3 times 4 is 12. 7 and 12, it's like the magical numbers. And 3, what?
We could debate this for a long time. But
yeah, we can, yeah. Okay, let's leave it then.
Yeah.
Well, one question that maybe is more of a simple one. I suspect it's something that Heather might be interested in asking, but if I can read her mind, the idea of the sun as being male or female, for some people, they think within northern Indo-European culture, it has a special kind of mystical significance, whereas there's quite a wide variation. How do you think it's seen and reflected in the kind of gender of?
you know, gender is a very, very fugitive matter.
Political.
It's in every culture the genders are switched. They are never constant. And I think the reason is that gender was an innovation in Proto-Indo-European, because the evidence of Anatolian, which is like the most ancient Indo-European language that we still have evidence from, show that the things or the phenomena, they were divided not in genders, not in three genders, but in animated and animate and inanimate.
Mm.
So in reality, the division in two, it was not like a gender division, because both male and female belong to animate class. Many trees, many animals were inanimate, and some animals and some trees were inanimate. So some things had soul or divine spark inside them, and some things did not have. Yeah.
All right, I just wanted to make an elaboration on that. When I gave my talk a couple weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago, my understanding of again, I'm talking about the 5 being totality. So I see 5 basic deities among the Indo-Europeans: the light or the sky, the earth, of course, the dawn, the sun, and the moon. And in addition to that, I see the divine twins. The divine twins are already part of that 5, but they're sometimes in addition to it. So you basically have 7 figures of the proto-pantheon. The sky, the light, and thunder, lightning are usually male. The earth and the dawn are usually female.
Female, yeah.
But the sun, moon, and fire are ambivalent. Sometimes they're male, sometimes they're female, and different peoples inherited them and interpreted them.
Like in European tradition, moon is primarily male. In Russian, we say Luna, it's female. The same was in the Latin, of course, and in Indian, I think it's the same.
And Greek.
Greek, yes, Greek. Selena, Helena, Selena. So yes, gender about sun and moon, it's not a constant thing. It's a very, very what's the right word in English?
Ambivalent?
Ambivalent and conventional.
Conventional, okay.
Yeah, conventional in the sense that it often follows
follows the cultural context of the given
morphology of the language, maybe as well. Is that yeah?
Language too, yes.
Does anyone who hasn't spoken perhaps have some questions? And they can be quite simple questions. I mean, some of the matters have been quite academically elevated, but hello, Adrian. Good to have you with us.
Oh, hello. Yes, I've only just clocked in. Actually, I just got back from picking up my Evening Standard.
Good.
So well, I'm a bit behindhand, but
well, good to have you, and good to have you, Ben. One question I would like to ask. The next bloat I'll be doing, I'm going to be focusing on one of the heroic poems from the Eddas, in which the Norns play a prominent role, sort of spinning the fate of one of the heroes. And obviously the 3 Norns have got several parallels with other traditions. Do you think that a concept of fate is a fairly common Indo-European thing, or it's not? You know, it's quite a partial thing. It's found some places, but not others.
So are you asking me specifically?
No, sorry, Adrian. I'm asking our guest. Sorry.
Oh right, yes, that's okay. Because I'm a bit behindhand on all this. You see, I'm not up to speed yet.
Well, Adrian. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, please, Maxim. Yes.
Yes, I will answer. I'm not sure it occupies a central place in original Proto-Indo-European region, but in any case, like in later times, the Russian word for God, Bog, originally made good fate, good fortune.
Mm.
The same thing was about your Germanic word God. It was a neuter word, and only with the advent of Christianity, it became personalized as masculinum. So, in a sense, God was like in Slavic understanding, it was a good fortune. Like in Russian, we say word "bogatый" also has this word God in it. It means rich. So I am rich if I am filled with God, filled with good fortune. So on that level, like Proto-Slavic, Proto-Germanic, yes, fate was a very profound thing, and I think the understanding of it was very, very close to Indian Dharma.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
I'll throw something in.
Yeah, Michael, please go ahead.
It's not a question. It's just a sort of point that I was wondering about. Is there possibly in religion a distinction to be made between all religions which consider themselves to be more or less organic and the inorganic? In the almost inorganic would be the non-religious, the atheistical. I'm just sort of throwing that as an idea. We're coming so much towards the time of cyborgs and the possibility, which is now very serious. I mean, I actually know somebody who's working and wanting this, overcoming humanity in a kind of Nietzschean sense, that we will be half robots and half persons and genders.
I think he's actually in our meeting. I think Dirk is here. He's in our meeting. But please go ahead. Sorry.
No, the point I was just wanting to make is so many things, it seems to me, are between the organic and the inorganic, between the natural or the world, even the inanimate, and that part of it, which is just, how should I say, mathematical and inorganic. And you could see this, just one last, sort of in a very, for me at least, a very negative sense, as the development of the European Union for Britain, was the removal of the organic means of measurement, the organic weights and measures, for example, the organic currency, in the sense that it was measured according to human history, and replaced with what is a computer-based mathematical concept of 1 and 0. I'm not very good with the new maths, but I know that's what's behind it, where you have decimals, and where, by the way, you can't divide by 3, which is an interesting point about, of course, decimals. If you divide by 3, 10 by 3, it just goes on forever, doesn't it? So I just threw that in as an idea. It did sort of occur to me. Nothing more than that, just a bit of fun, just a few ideas.
Yeah. That's a very good point. You can't divide by 3 in decimal. Yeah, that is a good point. I never thought of that. And
well, George Orwell said that no totalitarian society will not have decimals. They will always, all of them, always have a decimal system, and they will impose it as the Romans did, as Napoleon did. Yeah.
No.
I'd like to comment that 4 out of 3 people have trouble with maths.
My maths is just good enough that I understood the joke. Just. I had to take the O level twice. Not the A level, the O level twice.
No, thank goodness. Yeah, somewhat. So, Vladimir, you must have something to contribute.
Maybe I would like to put an accent on what did Maxim said, that the Jotun, or the giants, this is the more old deities in the tradition. And I've heard that nowadays there are some new circles within the Nordic tradition who are trying to preach exactly the giants, the Jotuns, instead of Aesir. So it's like a drive to understand our own roots in terms of the cosmical experience, of the experience of globality. And then it's not mostly like cultural approach, but more ontological approach, the approach of mysticism and real magic. And this drive towards the unity with the universe, with like, or even with the multiverse, it should somehow be reflected in the human mentality as well, and in the human experience. And I believe, so that's very interesting point, just to put more attention on exactly on giants like Ymir, who was the primordial Purusha, or primordial spirit, and something which is connected to, in the tradition, what is connected to the giants, to Vanir. And to my mind, maybe Vanir are really more connected to what we can say Finnic people, or also pre-Indo-European populations in old Europe. And maybe the Svedarian culture that Maxim mentioned, it also pre-Indo-European. If it was like 8,000 years before Christ, that means this was a non-Indo-European population, but something more old. And yes, the experience, the spiritual heritage of this old magic is also the part of our Indo-European identity, because what we can say in the European identity, it's not just on language. So we have, let's say, the whole South America speaks in Indo-European languages. So even the Black Africa speaks. We have like 100 million English-speaking people in Nigeria, but so they do not share so this mystical tradition of Northern Europe, even they speak the same language. That's why I believe, and also I really like what Maxim said about in the Uralic roots of primordial population of the Northern Eurasia, including Europe. So probably it's time just to go forwards and somehow to overcome the old schemes and old fashion of understanding what is exactly our historical and mystical heritage. And so I believe it's exactly the interesting point, and probably as for me, I am trying to work on it and to explore like more stuff and to be more creative in that direction.
I think we have the great blessing of all being, as it were, leaves on this living tree of faith, and like all living things, it may be moving in directions of its own, and we have to be ready to see where it goes. Really, it's not like the Abrahamic faith, something which is a text set in stone in a particular place. This is a religion that is throwing out new branches and new fruits, so that it's an exciting thing.
Before you go further,
yeah.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, absolutely, jump in.
Yeah, what Vladimir said about Uralic Finno-Ugric culture, actually it goes even larger than that. If we go back to the theonym that I reconstructed, which is the base of Indra and the Jotun, the very same word is Sumerian Dingir, which is the god, and the very same word is Tengri, which is the proto-Turkic deity that they worshipped in the steppes. So the community is in fact very large. It envelops even the Eastern Eurasia. Not the Hindustan, not the Thailand and the Korean and that, but in any case, Altaic people, Mongolia, all the steppe people that worship Tengri. It's definitely the same cultural proto-cultural circle. And about Abrahamic, about the Hebrews or ancient Jews, I would say that, well, I gave it a lot of thought, how they appear in the history, how they are connected to us. I think we have the case of of one tentacle which separated from a whole, like the giant octopus of our protoculture, and then it separated so long that that they forgot about their origin, their true origins, in search of the promised land. They left the place of origin in search of promised land because maybe they thought that their place of origin was fallen at that time, fallen from grace, fallen into decay, cultural decay, economical, I don't know. So they went westwards, blending with other people, blending with other culture, with language, with everything, only keeping to this one belief that they would finally find their promised land to settle in and to recreate the primordial religion that they believed in, which in essence could be very close to primordial Indo-European belief. But on the way they lost it. they lost the sense of what it was.
Yeah, it's a big it's a whole another subject.
Exactly, yes.
I think we're probably perhaps coming to the end. So those people who haven't asked any questions, perhaps think of something if you'd like to. In the meantime, do you think that the simple act of offering a sacrifice to the higher powers, the bloat, which one finds represented in Homer and so forth, do you think that is a genuinely kind of common thing? Like, it's clearly there in Vedic culture, that's the whole focus of it. Is that one thing that does connect many these different manifestations of the tradition?
I think it's a very human thing, not just Proto-Indo-European. I think you like wherever you go on this planet, you find the one same principle. Yeah. This is my intention materialized in something which is dear to me. My intention to a higher power in form of words, in form of benevolent thoughts, in form of a lit candle, sacrifice, like whatever. Yeah, it's very profound and very basic thing.
Yes, I agree. No, I think we it was about 8:15. So if no one else has any further points, I think we can wind the meeting up as it's quite late. And thanks Michael in London. Thanks for your contributions. Obviously, you've traveled similar roads academically to Maxim, so that was, very pleased to have you on board. Right, so final call for any questions. Otherwise, I will say a few words and blow out the candle, and we can. Is that Alan? Oh, you want to?
Not a question. I'd just like to thank Maxim for and for Michael for very knowledgeable contributions. I realise from hearing them that I've got a lot to learn. I'm still very, in a way, very new to the faith itself. And but I'd like to thank them. There were several small points I wanted to interject, but I think that I'd have only sidetracked. So that's why I've basically kept silent. But I'd like to thank them. I've learned a lot, and look forward to hearing you again sometime in the future. And regards to Estonia.
Thank you, Alan. That's a nice, a nice note to end. Right, I will say a few words, and then we can end the meeting. Amaltugur og miskensame eiser, at kveldi skal dagløyfe kono brende vaki roinde moje gevine ise ivekemur ul trukite, og at not skal kvöld løyfe. Blessed gods of our peoples and lands, at evening shall one praise the day, and at night shall one praise the evening. We're thankful for what we've profited by and for what we've found pleasure in. Sigur Ider, Sigur Ider, Sigur Os, Sigur Os. Frieder Ider, Frieder Os. Victory to you, peace be to you. Victory to us, peace be to us. Hail Odin. Thank you so much to you, Maxim, for with energy answering our questions, and for everyone who's attended. Oh, Dirk, you have your hand up, please. Oh, well.
No, just waving goodbye.
Oh, waving goodbye. Oh, good to have you here. And yeah, I hope everyone will enjoy the good weather we've been having to go out and to take some exercise and so forth, which is such a pleasure. All right.
Good fortune for you with your upcoming trials. And
thank you. I'm not looking forward to not doing any exercise for a few months, but maybe it's quite. But maybe I've been too attached to the pleasure of exercise, and it's not good to be too attached. I don't know. Anyway. All right, yeah, good. Thanks, Vladimir. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, James, Federico, Louise. Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Ben, Dirk, Maxim, Alan, Michael, Mick. Yeah, good to see you. All right.
Thanks to you, Steve. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Maxim. It was really an interesting talk. Really enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.